Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 363. By the way, this is Orlando. I think I sounded like roar.
Yeah. You gotta come in a little slower. I mean, let's be honest here. So I feel like maybe even one of our early podcasts, like we knew each other.
Yeah.
But I always called you by your last name. And so I didn't really use your first name very often. And you know, we were like work friends. I feel like when we first started, we were like getting into like just really becoming friends. And I think one of the early episodes, I called you Orlando instead of Orlando.
That's
and you
fine.
like corrected me, and I felt terrible for that. But so if I, your friend, could say your name wrong, I'm sure other people are mishearing it. So we are on episode 363, and we are talking about the real facts about reselling, things about reselling that, either people don't talk about, things that are important that need to be talked about, and just kind of the reality. I mean, one of the things about Pure Hustle Podcast is we've always said that we want to be real, relevant, and focused on reselling. And that's part of this is we try and be relevant. And sometimes the relevant is what's going on, big macroeconomic stuff. Sometimes it's things that are happening in, technology and specifically with reselling. But we always want to be real. And so there's times we talk about the good, there's times we talk about the bad. And today we're going to be kind of covering a lot of those things. So that way we all have a realistic expectation of what reselling is, what reselling can be.
No, agreed. And the reason, Mike and I are doing these episodes, because I think right now, everybody, this is just my perception, is waking up about reselling. Not in the sense of like people are going out to resell. It's just that things are tough right now. And so the harsh reality of what reselling actually is finally hitting people. I think the last, 2020, even before that, like 2018, 2019, things were really good, like really good. And then after 2020, like once 2021 hit, things began to get interesting. And now we're in 2023 and things are as real as they will ever be. And so, I thought this would be good for us to share, just for us to talk, obviously, to just, just resonate with people that listen, and also to kind of warn those that are new, that are going, hey, I think I should go full time right now. Or, those that are, just in this place where like, oh, I can, this is going to always be easy, or, this, they had, they started the first month and their first month it went really well, and they think it's going to just be an upward trajectory the entire time. And so one of the first things though, I just want to make sure that people understand though, is that reselling is profitable. Right. That is something that there is no denying it. All the time people go like, oh, reselling is a scam. Right. Unless you're really into reselling, it's hard to have that perspective. Right. If you were to tell me, years ago that I could pick up something for $1 or $2 or even free, right, like those Game Boy boxes, and make hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'd be like, no, that's crazy. That's all a scam. Somebody's lying to you. Somebody's trying to sell a course to you. Right. They're just trying to get YouTube views, and they're using clickbait material. But the reality is reselling is profitable. It's helped a lot of people, whether it be individuals that were just trying to make a few bucks to just, have some fun, whether it's individuals that were looking to be able to pay some bills every month. There are people that have, bought houses full on because of reselling. I think of K-Way Shop and his wife. I love how his name is Wayne, but we call these people by the Instagram handles, which I think is kind of weird. But, he listens to the podcast early on, and he still listens, but he was working for the post office. And as he was listening to the podcast, he began to build his reselling repertoire, and he learned more, and he became, I would say, an expert in certain kinds of clothing. And, they paid off all their debt. They bought a house. Now his wife is full-time with him. I think they have a bigger social media following than we do on TikTok. I mean, growing, and because right now he has the time, because he's been profitable. He's had the time to be able to do more social media. And so, there's many examples outside of Wayne and others. There's Reezy. We talk about Reezy Resells a lot. We've had him on the podcast. The Latin pickers. Like there are so many people, so many examples, so many that aren't on social media that will say, you know what? Reselling is a good thing. It's a true thing. It's profitable, but there's a lot behind that statement.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's a reason that we've got this podcast going 363 episodes in.
So
I
wild.
mean, we would have stopped a long time ago if we stopped being profitable. In fact, I mean, I don't want to repeat the same stories over and over, but when we first started the podcast, I just assumed it would be, a 10, 20 episode thing of us kind of just like you teaching me how to resell. Now I've learned to resell is a fun little thing we did. And then we'd move on because I never saw it being something that could be life changing. And it has been. It's been life changing for me and my family. And it is profitable. And, it's one of those things, and we'll kind of talk about that as we go. But it's one of those things where you kind of you get out of it what you put into it. And that's not always the case. There are external things that,
we'll
that
talk
you
about
can't
that.
always control. Yeah. But it's if you're willing to work hard, there's profit to be made. And so right off the bat, it's important, I feel like, for us to start with that concept, because if you're just getting started or you've been doing this for a while, it's easy to either one, be worried that you can't be profitable in it, or two, to forget all the benefits, how much profit you've got, whether it's profit financially or other types of profit like freedom of time, opportunity, all of those things. The next thing, and I love this concept, is that reselling is simple, but it's not always easy. And the reason I love this, in fact, this is one of the very first things I do at the start of every single school year with my students, is I have them do a writing prompt where they describe the difference between simple and easy. And I really want them to think about that, because I use that analogy for like school. Like school is simple, but it's not always easy. The assignments you're doing, if you do everything you're supposed to do and you do your best, you're going to be successful at school. It's not always an easy thing to do. And I think the same thing is true with reselling. There's very simple principles, and some of it can almost sound like cheesy simple, as far as like buy low and sell high and just take good pictures. And some of it's almost sounds, yeah, I get it. But the thing is, people sometimes think because it's a simple concept that it's always going to be easy. And I people need to think, and this is myself included, you need to really differentiate. There may not be many steps in what we do, but those steps can be hard. It's like, I use the analogy when I'm teaching my students this, of running. Like running is literally 2 steps, left foot, right foot. And you just do that over and over and over. And it's a simple thing to do, but it's not an easy thing to do for, an extended period of time. You've got to put a lot of effort. You got to train, you got to work towards it. And some people are going to be naturally better at it than others. And there's all those things involved. And reselling is just like that. All you've got to do is go out and find the stuff cheaper than you can sell it for, and sell it. And that's a simple thing to do, but there's going to be hiccups along the way. There's going to be seasons of drought. There's going to be times when you're not wanting to list. There's going to be death piles that are piling up. There's going to be changes in markets, and you're going to have to be kind of keeping track of what's trending and what's not trending. There's a lot involved with the amount of work you have to put in. And there will be times when it's easy. There will be, hey, I got a really sweet haul. It was really easy for me to list these things and research these things and sell these things. And so you can have kind of that feast moment, but that's not the everyday of reselling. So the principles are the same, and it will be simple, but it's not always easy. But even just remembering that it's simple is a good thing too. Don't overcomplicate things, because then that can get you frustrated and make it so you don't want to continue reselling.
Yeah, and I want to touch on this a little bit too, because, it's funny, because we started the podcast, right? You were brand new. Right. How long do you think, Mike, it took you to get a hold of how to successfully sell on eBay?
Successfully sell on eBay, I feel like I had a pretty good basis of just hustling in general. But as far as like navigating the technical aspects of eBay, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Just like from how to source to how to list to how to pack and ship.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't long. It was a couple of months of doing some things. I mean, I feel like if you're learning from every mistake, you learn quickly, a couple times shipping
others'
things
mistakes.
wrong, and that's right. And some of it you just have to do yourself. Like you realize like, oh, I'm not charging enough for shipping, or I need to learn how to pack these things, or that's a bad idea to source those because of the time it takes to test. And so there are certain things that you continue to learn as you go, and you're going to continually refine and get better. But as far as just kind of learning the basics and being to the point where I could do this, like if you were to say, start with nothing, here's $10, buy something and sell it on eBay and kind of get this thing rolling. Within a couple of months, I was at a place where I feel like I was competent enough that I could really get that going.
Yeah. And so I want to encourage those that are listening that it's really easy to learn. I think the learning curve is easy. I think staying consistent is a difficult part. Right? I'll never forget when we started the podcast. I was, it was my first year full time, right? Just starting full time, and I remember within 3 months, I stopped watching resellers on YouTube. I still listen to Scavenger Life because I really enjoyed their podcast, but outside of that, I really wasn't watching any more Bellow videos. Not saying you shouldn't watch our videos, but there was a point where it wasn't relevant to me anymore, right? I had learned, what I was able to source in my area. I learned what was good and profitable. I learned how to ship. There was a lot of things that I learned, but what I struggled with was how to keep that momentum. Right. And I think that's the part that's tough on eBay is, when it's the beginning, right? You love that first few cha-chings, you make that major profit. But then what happens when you can't find those things, right? What happens when you go 3 weeks of garage sales and there's really nothing? What happens when, that thrift store that was around the corner raises their prices to a crazy amount and no longer is it profitable? Right, that's when it starts getting difficult. What happens when eBay starts asking you to pay promoted fees, or eBay wants you to do free returns, or eBay wants you to do expedited shipping, whatever it may be? That's when it gets difficult. And so this is why there's always somewhere to learn. Like, for example, I still watch resellers on YouTube, but I watch different ones now. Now I watch those that have been reselling for a while, that have adapted, that even during this difficult time, it seems to me that they're making it happen. So I want to encourage people that, it's simple, but it's not easy. Staying consistent is the most, I would say, difficult part. Now, the third one, I think that keeps everyone safe though. And people argue this with me all the time, but I think keeping your costs low solves a ton of your problems.
Who argues with you on that?
I get people saying that, like, well, you keep saying, Orlando, that you should just, buy stuff for cheaper. And sometimes you can. And I go, well, then maybe you need to switch what you're sourcing, or maybe you need to find somewhere else to source. So that's what I get. I generally get a lot of it too from people that do retail arbitrage. So, I understand that component, but to me, it's like, even right now, unless you really know what you're doing, I would not touch retail arbitrage. Like, I wouldn't. Like, I would say there's people that are really good. So for example, right now in this market with like Nike shoes and sneakers, like, there used to be a time when it wasn't that saturated and you could go into a Nike store, you would hardly ever see a reseller, and you could, get stuff on clearance and for cheap, and there wasn't that much competition on Amazon or Go or whatever platform you're using. But now, right, you'll go. And this was, I haven't gone like in a year and a half, but I used to go to the factory store here by where I live. And every morning there's at least 10 resellers at the door waiting to get in. And that's just that location. And then after that is when you list it, right? If you're all buying at the same price point, it's going to be super competitive. So yeah, there's people that are like saying, no, it's not about buying low. And sometimes I also get individuals that are like, Orlando, you're always trying to negotiate a better deal. And to me, it's like, that's the way that you stay profitable right now in this time. Because here's what people are missing right now, and not everyone, but a lot of people are missing, is that you would think in a time of inflation right now, right? The last inflation report came out, right? We went up 3.7% comparison to last year. Okay, so inflation has not gone; it's gone down, but it's going back up again. Okay, gas prices. My gas every day has gone up at least 5 cents here in California. There was maybe like 2 or 3 days where it didn't go up, but I would say in the last 2 weeks, it's gone up at least 30 to 40 cents. I don't know how it is over there in Texas, but out here, it's gone crazy. And inflation, all these prices have gone up. Okay. And we'll talk about this later on. Fees have gone up on all platforms, but guess what? What hasn't gone up? How much you can sell things for. That's actually gone down. So you're in this inverse relationship, and you're going to be in trouble if you can't buy things for cheap, if you can't buy things for a lower price. Because while, yes, our prices, everything have gone up, you as a reseller, your prices have gone down. You're facing deflation while everything else is inflationary. That's a really bad place to be, especially if you're still trying to spend the same amount of money for items and you're trying to sell them for what they were back in 2021, 2022. Somebody had asked me, actually in the comments had said, it's crazy, Orlando, that, you're selling at 50% off, but you're still able to, make the same amount of money as before. Well, the only reason I'm able to do that is because my costs are really low, right? I'm selling a lot more, but I'm willing to take more offers. I'm willing to run deeper sales. Actually, I'm running an even deeper sale right now. I'm at 55% because I need to. I'm running 35% off, and I sent like 8,000 people 20% off coupon. So we'll stay tuned for the update. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I understand people arguing with you with the like the way you negotiate. I get that rubs some people wrong. The other part, though, I understand where they're coming from when you say just buy stuff cheaper. Like, yeah, that is the ideal. But there comes a place where like that's not always possible. Like, if you could always just buy stuff cheaper, eventually you get to a place where you're just now sourced for free. Now have people pay you to source from them. Like, there comes a point where like I've kind of found rock bottom prices. Like, if you're able to source shoes for $2 a pair, or you're able to sort like whatever it is, you've got pretty decent, but like all those other things you've said, like the price you could sell for have gone down. You can't always make up for that difference of the prices have gone down what I can sell for. I'm just going to buy the stuff cheaper. Like, yeah, then you could say, well, then get in a different market. But I don't know. I think it's almost,
you're going to have to.
I mean, yeah, maybe, but and I agree we do have to adapt, and that's the thing. But I think I understand the principle of buy as cheap. I think what we should say is buy as cheap as you can. I don't think you can say though, like, oh, just buy cheaper, because it's possible you're already buying as cheap as you can buy in that situation.
I see that. That's true. That's true. But if you're in a place where your fees are too high, you're trying to do promoted listings, like in clothing, right? Clothing is super saturated, and I don't know what the average is, but let's say the average is 20%. Okay, like if you want to get top promoted on certain things, you're promoting at 20%, which is crazy. But a lot of clothing sellers even hit 25%. I've seen even 30 at times. Okay, so there's that. Then there's the eBay fees, right? That's another 10, 12%. So we're talking about 42% already being taken off of what you're buying. Okay, of what you're buying and selling. Then on top of that, let's say you decide to go free shipping. Then that's another, I don't know, depending on what you're selling, let's throw another, 10%. So now you're looking at over 50%, okay, that you are losing in fees, in shipping, and everything. So if you're trying to buy your inventory for the same price now that you were buying a year or two ago and prices have gone down, you're going to be in a mess. Right, you're gonna have to find a way legally to get inventory at a price that you can still stay profitable. And so the number one rule in reselling is you got to buy low and you got to sell high. That makes sense?
Yep, that's true. I mean, that's market, right? No matter what market you're in, buy low, sell high.
Yeah, agreed. All right, hey, before we move on though, there's another thing that you need to know is you need to be able to stay on top of your bookkeeping. Don't be like Orlando and wait until October to file your taxes. Get your taxes done as soon as you can. And one way you can do that is by using My Reseller Genie. And My Reseller Genie allows you to keep all your information from year to year. It imports it from eBay, allows you to put your cost of goods and so on. And it's a great tool so you can have peace of mind. You're not stressing. You know where you're at with your numbers. So if you haven't checked out My Reseller Genie, go to the link below. User code Pure Hustle. You get 15% off the first month. And you should be ready to go. So check it out. Again, link below. User code Pure Hustle. Get 15% off the first month.
Yes, that's good. All right. So the next thing that's kind of important to know, and this again is something that's kind of dear to my heart, is this idea of resellers need to know more than the person you're buying from, right? Resellers need to know more than the seller. And here's what we mean by this. Knowledge is power. If you have more knowledge in the situation, you are going to win most of the time. I feel like there's two things with that, like the knowledge part, and then two, the other thing I've said before is whoever cares the most in the negotiation is going to lose. Whoever cares most about the making the deal or making the sale is going to lose because the other one has more leverage. But if you've got the knowledge, it's going to give you automatic leverage because you're going to know at what price point you're going to be able to pick something up for and be profitable. So depending on what numbers people give you, you can, say no, you could say yes. You have a little bit more negotiation room. If the seller knows more than you, you're really going to struggle with being able to get a decent deal, because you might think something is way more valuable than it is, and they're able to offload it to you, and they actually end up winning because they've offloaded stuff that isn't quite as valuable.
Yep.
Or they know more than you, and they're just going to say like, or even as much as you, and they say like, no, actually I know what this is worth, and I'm not going to sell it for this price. So certain things, especially when you're talking about like collectibles, you're going into something where you're trying to buy up collectibles from people. You need to know enough about the thing you're getting, unless you're just lucky. And again, it's one of those things where if someone's like, yeah, these are my kids, toys, I don't really know, however much for the box, you can have it, basically. That's the deal, again, because they don't know what it's worth. There are times when somebody knows, yeah, I know that this toy probably sells for $100 on eBay, but I'm not going to spend the time and energy doing it. But they still probably aren't going to offload it to you for 50 cents because they have that knowledge. So again, the more things you have knowledge about, the better off you're going to do when you go into a garage sale or you go to the thrift store. If you have tons of knowledge about a lot of different categories, maybe that seller knows the value of one or two things that they have, but they might not know the value of the third thing that they have. And so that's where you're going to win. So the longer you do this, the more knowledge you're going to end up having, because the research you're doing and just the experience. The more often you do it, the easier you're going to be able to tell, I'm still not a clothing guy, I need to get more into it. But one of the things that people have mentioned is it's not even about the brands, especially if you're going to like the bins. It's, do you know fabrics? Can you feel some clothing and say like, this is valuable versus this is just kind of throwaway clothes? The more you know that stuff, the easier, the faster all of those things become. So you definitely need to focus on knowledge. So no matter whether you're just starting out or you've been doing this a long time, one of the number one areas you need to improve in if you want to be successful is going to be knowledge. Knowledge equals money in this game. And so even if you're dirt broke and you're starting off and you, like I said at the beginning, you've got $10 to start this reselling journey on, knowledge is free. You can just spend time walking in a thrift store, looking up stuff at garage sales, watching YouTube videos, looking at sold comps on eBay, because the more knowledge you have, the better off you're going to be.
No, and there's so many examples of that. I saw a guy on TikTok. I think his name is Surfs of Finds or something. Shout out to him. He has some good content on there, and he bought a painting at a thrift store for like $10. And the moment he listed it, like there was no signature, there was no identifiers. He couldn't find out what it was. I think this was before Google Images too. And $10, and then somebody offered him, I hope I got it right, but I think somebody's offered to wire him $10K. 50 to 10K, like that's a win, okay? And then a year later, he decided to research and he looked it up, and the person that bought it restored it, sold it at Sotheby's, and sold it for $186,000. Right? So knowledge, right? Knowledge. He didn't know, but he knew that it was worth something. The other person knew more, knew what to restore, knew how to get it auctioned off and made more money. And that's the way reselling goes. Right? I have an example later on today. Well, no, I got plenty of examples, but listen, my latest haul, right? With the manga and the Game Boy boxes, right? That's fresh in memory. I only knew about manga because of you. I think you brought it up one time. Like, I never would have looked at that stuff. To me, that looks like a bunch of like kids' books that aren't worth anything. I know I sound like an old man saying that. Now you've been making a
killing on it, right?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Especially that One Piece stuff, man.
I just sold one Piece book. It's a gold foil is Bellow. On the bottom, it has like this like foil, whatever on it. I sold one, if their first print, I sold it for $120. Just one. That whole haul, I spent $190 on. All right, the Game Boy boxes. The only way I knew about Game Boy boxes is because on social media, I'm sure I watched a couple YouTube and people had found like a Pokemon box and they're like, oh, this lady gave it to me for $250 and I sold it for like $200 to $300. Had I not known that, all those boxes that I got out of the trash would be in a landfill somewhere right now. Instead, to help pay the bills for me. So yeah, your knowledge is key. And that's just the way it is, right? And I've said this before, everybody has access to phones. So don't feel bad if you go to a garage sale and you see something that's profitable and the person's like, whatever, I'll $2, I want it out of here. That's what they wanted to do, right? They didn't want to look it up. They just wanted to get rid of it. You had the knowledge. You knew it was valuable. Your time is important to you too. And so you just picked it up and you made a killing on something. And that's just the way business goes, right? That's all the time. Every single transaction you make. So, all right. Now this one, no one likes hearing this, but fees will always go up. They will always go up. There will never be a time where there's going to be an entire year that no fees have gone up. Especially, think about the price of everything. The other day, I know I sound really chintzy saying this, but is that an okay word? I don't even know. I feel bad. Anytime I use these words, I use all the time. I feel like somebody's going to say I said something that was not PC. But I wanted to get like a McDonald's ice cream cone. Do you know how much those cost now?
I don't remember the last time I went to McDonald's.
Good for you. No. Good for you. Okay. All right. But just a year ago, you could get them for $1 at the dollar menu. Now here in California, it's $3.29. A McChicken sandwich is $4.29. So if everything else is going up in price, and by the way, hopefully some of you took advantage of the 50-cent hamburgers at McDonald's, I think a couple of days ago that happened.
No, hopefully you didn't. Hopefully you didn't eat at McDonald's. Ugh.
Hey, that's
your health is important. No, you could make better meals than that for cheaper.
And Wendy's, I think Wendy's did I think it was 1 cent for a junior bacon cheeseburger or something.
Yeah, so. You're costing yourself long term with that. I'm not trying to. No shame to anybody eating fast food. I
oh no, kids, shame me. I shouldn't be eating fast food. I eat too much.
I have little ones, so there's a lot of times where like there's rough weeks, and it's like, what are we having for dinner? I don't know. But man, long term, man, take care of your health. Actually, we should add that, man. Even things like sleep, all those things, man. You will be a better reseller if you're taking care of your health.
That is true. I do remember 2 years ago after a Q4, I was dying. And I'm still out of shape, but I'm in better shape than I was at that point in time because I remember like my knees, like I couldn't make it. So yes, I agree with that. Anyways. Fees will just go up. It's just part of doing business. I will say eBay threw us a curveball with the promoted listings. I don't think anyone understood how much it would affect us in reselling because it has drastically affected all of us because it's normal. I know that sounds weird. I know people hate hearing that, but it is normal now unless you're in a field that doesn't need it. But pretty much anything you're going to pick up, you're going to have to promote in some form or fashion unless it's something super special. And so just live with that reality. That's just part of reselling. If you're a new reseller and you hear a lot of these, veteran resellers on these forums going, I'm not reselling anymore because of fees, or I'm done. Fees are too high. Just don't listen to them.
I mean, yes, but no. I mean, there could come a place where the fees are too high. Like you do have to consider that because, what does it take when, if your margins are going to be slim, prices are already going down. If fees keep going up, like you could get to a point where you're working more for an hourly wage that's not worth it, right? So fees can be a legitimate reason to leave if you're already on slim enough margin. Now, of course, the ideal is we'll just be on better margins, but
yes.
it doesn't always work,
Yeah, but how crazy are your margins? I mean, I understand if you're like an Amazon seller and you're only making 10% net profit and the Amazon fees go up, yes. But on eBay, if you're doing secondary goods, like I think there's a problem. Like I really do. If you're doing retail arbitrage, I can get that. But if you're doing vintage goods or secondary goods, I think there's a problem.
But again, like it's one of those things like you've made comments about like when it comes to negotiating, you'll negotiate an extra $1 off of somebody's offered you something, you could get it for 20, you would try and get it for 19, because yes. Every dollar counts at that point. So you're talking about like a 5% difference. And if someone told you like you can resell, but you're not allowed to negotiate at garage sales anymore, like
oh, I'm out.
It could be, but see, and of course it's bigger deals than always like 2%, 5%. Like sometimes it's huge, but it comes down to that adds up over time. Like a 5% increase of fees could make it where it's like, all right, well, I was making this much. That might only sound like 5% less, but if it's like all the other things on top of it, it's 5% less on top of, if you're working more to make less on top of all of those, it adds up. I mean, yes, fees are going to go up. And so, yes, try to fortify your business in a way that can handle that stress. And for most people, I don't think it's going to be much of a stress. Like most people aren't even going to feel the difference between 1% and 5% and maybe even as much as a 10% ding on their store. You know, like I made 10,000 last year. I made 9,000 this year. Like, yeah, if you're part-time or something like that, it's not enough to make you quit. But you know, if you're on a fixed income, you're full time and you're like, I need 100 grand to make ends meet. And now I'm making 10% less because of all of the different fees that have gone up, whether it's shipping and fees on eBay and all these things. Now I'm only making 90 and I'm working harder to make that 90.
Well, that's where I'm at. I'm down 20 to 30%. And I'm working 20, I would say 50% more than usual. So yeah, it's but that's the reality of reselling. Right, I've accepted that reality. I know it's tough. I know it's brutal right now. I'm not giving up. I'm gonna keep moving unless it gets to a place where, you know, I'm putting my whole family in danger financially. Then I'm gonna keep moving forward. But that is the reality of reselling. Like you have to work with the fees, and you have to find a way to stay profitable with those fees. So that whether that means you find the right platform, whether that means you source differently, whether that means you buy things for less. Whether, you know, that means that you end up having to maybe go not full part-time, but maybe you go, you know, reselling 3/4 time, right? And you pick up something like that. That's where we're at right now. Like right now, somebody was mentioning that there's actually people that were on YouTube now that the YouTube revenue has gone down and the reselling revenue has gone down. And now they're in a place where they ended up picking up a job, right? And I've mentioned before, I teach homeschool, right? If it wasn't for me teaching homeschool, I'd be in a worse place right now, right? That helps me out, right? You know, we make a little on the podcast, which I don't think it helps out really substantially, but it does. Every dollar helps, right? There's all these different streams of income. I've done some investing, stuff like that. But outside of that, right, you have to find a way to deal with the fees because fees are just the reality of reselling. Hey, before we move on, I forgot to mention my reseller. I know we talked about Reseller Genie, but I just want to say thank you to them for the swag. So in case, I think you can get some, I don't know, but go to them on Instagram and I got this bag, which it'd be awesome to fill this up. I want, you know, Mike, I want you to be one of those bin people with bags. That's what I want.
Make sure you're talking to the microphone.
I want you to be one of those guys with bags at the bins. Like
all right.
You're like, no. That's fine. But no, thank you. I just want to say thank you to my reseller Genie. Paul and Faith, always good. Telling us they appreciate us. So anyways, I forgot to mention that before when we were throwing the ad, but I am grateful. What else? We got a journal in here. We got stickers. Keep calm and Genie on. Okay.
Nice.
All right. Anyways, hey, before we move on to our, I got to tell you, this hustle of the week is probably one of the best hustles of the week we've had in a while. I mean, they're always great, but there are some that you're like, whoa, like this was great, or at least entertaining. You know what I mean? So,
oh yeah.
You want this pen? Here you go.
Is it a gel pen?
It is. Look,
yeah, send it my way. Put it in the mailbox, man.
We should have done a cool effect where I handed you the pen and you somehow grabbed it on the other screen.
Take it,
and you just
that would have taken more forethought and production than our podcast currently has the budget for.
Just mailing a pen to you. That's all it would have taken. Okay.
Yeah, well.
All right. Hey, if you haven't been following,
stamps are expensive, man. Shipping is getting out of control.
Yeah, shipping is pretty intense these days.
Speaking of which, if you want to help support us so that we can do that, we can ship some stuff to each other every once in a while with this exorbitant shipping fees. You can join our Patreon and support us there. And one of the benefits of doing that, it's $5 or $5.55 a month, and it's just a way of saying thank you. We don't have tons of we don't hide content behind a paywall, but what we do have is we have a Discord, which is just a community of resellers who get together and they're chatting throughout the week, throughout the day, asking questions, giving comments, sharing encouragement, every once in a while venting, right? Like all the things that's kind of nice. And it's just a good community. So if you're interested in joining that, and even if you're not interested in joining the Discord and you just want to support us, we really do appreciate all of the people who support us on Patreon. And there's a reason why we don't even mention our Patreon until like halfway through the episode every time, is because, you know, we want you to see, like, we're not just starting the episode like gimme. Like, we want this content to be out there. We want you to be able to have this content. And if you've listened to this and you're like, wow, I like what they're saying, I feel like it's valuable, and you listen to our content, it's what makes this happen. I have a green screen behind me that cost quite a bit of money to get. You know, they weren't super cheap, and the camera equipment that we have and the audio equipment, all the things that we have, even the being able to stream this and record this and then upload it and all those things, there's expenses, and you guys help cover that. So thank you so much.
Whatever this thing was that Mike said to get.
Yeah. Careful moving it around while we're recording, Orlando. That's terrible etiquette. I hope you didn't mess anything up.
I don't think I did.
Come on,
Hey,
man.
by the way, if you haven't been following us on social media, we're PHP Podcast, and all social media, we are PHP Cast on X. You can always give us a call. Our voicemails are kind of lonely lately, so give us a call, 619-738-1170. It's 619-738-1170, or shoot us an email at purespodcast@gmail.com. Actually, our hustle of the week this episode and 2 weeks from now come from our emails. So again, purespodcast@gmail.com. If you haven't had a chance yet to watch us on YouTube and you listen to the podcast, jump on over to the YouTube, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, hit that bell notification. And as always, grateful for all of you that leave us reviews on Apple iTunes. It really helps us a lot, just so people know why should they tune in, why is PRSO Podcast the number one reselling podcast and the most reviewed. Where are we at right now? We're at 737. I want to get to 800 here, so we're getting there. I just want to share the last two here. Oh wait, let's go last three. I'm encouraged by this one. So this is from Santini. There's like 5 I's at the end. And they said, your advice helped this former and ... So I'm guessing former reseller. I don't know. Okay. I said, this is one of the best podcasts for eBay reselling. These guys have integrity and valuable insight. At the beginning of June 2023, my sales stopped. Their advice about getting the sale jumped started my summer. My summer slowdown became a speed up. Now going in, their insight about how eBay is pushing sales is so valuable. This show produces valuable and timely advice. That is awesome. Good for you, Santini. All right. This comes from, I always love these. This is from Given a Gift. 2 out of 5 stars on this one. See, we keep it real here.
That's all right.
Because I love
that actually hurts. Honestly, a 1-star review you can almost throw away. I feel like maybe even a 2, but like the 2s and the 3s, man, that's where it hurts. Because it's like, it's legitimate enough where it's not just like, I hate them. They look awful, so I'm going to give them a bad star,
I just love that you can't win, right? We can't win, right?
No,
so
never.
This is from Given a Gift said, I love podcasts that uses the first 20 minutes reading stats from articles. 32% of most listeners turn off the podcast when the host mind-numbingly reads off stats. What's next? Asking us to guess smells over the podcast? What?
It's pretty funny.
I don't know.
I'll give you that.
If you don't have enough content to make a weekly podcast, maybe you shouldn't. Quality over quantity. Bring back the Fifth Wheel podcast. What? I'm so... Okay, so number one, the reason our podcast is a great podcast is because we actually do research. We bring in real numbers and real stats. Like, I'm just not talking about and whining and ranting about just my random day of reselling. Like, we want to help people.
But I will tell you what. So I will agree in a sense, and this isn't against you, Orlando.
All right,
this is just
I'm okay.
Listening.
Okay.
Now that we're distant, like before, you used to be able to read the articles and I'd kind of look over your shoulder and be kind of glancing and I'd be able to kind of skim through and see what you're saying. But now that I'm just listening to you read the articles, if it's too long and it's not just like, here's like the 2-sentence summary of what it had to say, you do start to lose what's being said. So I understand part of that argument, but you're right with one, we don't start the podcast that way. That was what the news,
news
that's
section
like halfway through the podcast.
In.
And it makes up like 5 minutes of the podcast is us. But whatever. Again, like you're not gonna make everybody happy, but yeah, we do research our podcast as much as possible and try and bring in relevant information. If there's a part you don't like, skip it.
I take pride in the research that we're not wasting your time. Like this to me is quality. And if you don't like the quality, there's other podcasts around.
Yep.
All right. But
go get on TikTok.
Huh? What's that?
If they can go get TikTok, like you got 5 seconds, your attention span, if it's only that big.
I just thought, okay, but the fifth wheel, was that about your fifth wheel trailer? Like what?
Yeah, because people complained for a while. There was like a 2 or 3 month period where I was in the process of trying to sell that fifth wheel. It was like a huge thing that was like life changing, because the fifth wheel, like the whole fifth wheel adventure,
it came from reselling.
It came from reselling, right? So like that was part of the whole thing. Is like reselling took my wife out of work on purpose so that we could do that, and then so we had to go to the fifth wheel to afford living, and then like, oh, we could actually make money on this thing. Like, so it was a whole aspect of like the reselling journey in a lot of ways. So but yeah, I mean, I get that my couple minutes updates every week for a few months was too much for people, which is fine. But apparently this person enjoyed it. So again, you can't win. There's probably parts of the podcast that I mean, even I get like, this isn't for me. Whatever, you're listening to it. Fast forward, we have 363 episodes of tons of content. I'm sure there's something there that's valuable. Yeah.
So this next one, I'm a fan of this one. So this one comes from Lombard with 3 L's. Said, such a great podcast. I listened to you guys too much because last night I was dreaming I was dating Orlando. It was pretty cool though, because I now had someone to source with and talk about eBay, LOL. But seriously, I look forward to this podcast every week. I listen while I'm working and it breaks up my day. Very informative and relatable. Thank you guys so much for your weekly inspiration.
There you go.
See, there's highs and lows.
That's right.
There's people that you know appreciate us, and there's people that appreciate the fifth wheel.
You are the most eligible reselling podcast co-host out there, I think. So
is that good or bad? I don't know if that's a good thing. So I don't. Here's my struggle, and I'm not. This isn't a dating show, but I just don't see me being a full-time reseller and a relationship. That would unless that person is all in on reselling, like that's a pretty hard sell. So anyways,
I mean, again, without getting too far off topic, I think one of the things too is like, and I probably will talk about this more on the update episode too, but part of that is just mission though. Like I think reselling is fun. I mean, it can be fun, but I don't think most people like reselling is like the ends. It's like not the thing that like that people care the most about. It's like reselling is a means to the end. And so if you've got a mission, if you got like something like I'm reselling, I'm doing this so that I can have more family time, or that agreed. I can get financially free. Or so I think people can get behind that. So if you're out there, and maybe this is just advice even too for people who are in the same boat as you, they're like, I'm a reseller. It's an interesting lifestyle. Can I do this? I'm single right now. Can I do this with somebody else? And it's like the person actually, I don't even know if they have to be all in on reselling, but if they're behind the mission of this is what reselling allows, and here's my goal moving forward with reselling, people can get behind that. So I've heard a lot of people say that, their significant other wasn't super into the reselling. Even my wife wasn't super into it until all of a sudden money started coming in. And then it was like, oh yeah, we could do that trip. Okay. How can I help you with this reselling thing? Right. Like,
that is true. Yeah,
they get behind the, what you're doing out of reselling, not just reselling itself.
No, agreed. And I appreciate you, Lombard. So hopefully you keep tuning in. So thank you. Yeah. All right. I got so much to say about all that because anyways, for another time, let's get to this hustle of the week.
That's right. Come on, hustlers. It's the freaking hustle of the week. Yeah, hustle of the week. So our first one is an email, and it comes from Matt from MSG's Treasures. So listening to your podcast today, and this collection I bought is exactly what you're talking about. The seller just wanted it gone and needed to get out of the storage unit he was in and needed bill money. I bought a storage unit full of this guy's lifetime collection, all high-end figures, 90% with the boxes. I gave him $3,000 and had to drive 3 hours one way to get it, and it filled my 7 by 12 foot enclosed trailer. I've made close to 15,000 off of it so far, and I still have hundreds of figures to list are listed. Attached are some recent sales, so there's some pictures that he gave us and some current listed inventory. This is better than those die-cast planes and tanks I shared with you a while ago, if you remember. Of course, I remember those. Those were great. This, again, nobody is wanting to take advantage of anybody, and this guy was a collector. So, like we talked about earlier, this person knew the value of his stuff. Like he knows what he had.
Yeah, he did.
But also, times are really hard for us as resellers right now. But times are hard for other people too, and so by being able to offload this stuff quickly, it made this guy be able to make ends meet. This was the boost this guy needed. This was the bridge he needed to get from point A to point B. And he probably didn't have the months and months and months that it's going to take for you to continue to make the money off of this that he could have had he listed it and done all this stuff. He didn't probably have the infrastructure. Like, again, going back to that idea of how long it took me to get into eBay. If you had a big collection and then all of a sudden we're told like, oh, you can sell this stuff on eBay. Well, now I got to figure out shipping. Now I got to get boxes. Now I got to make an account. Well, nobody trusts my account because I haven't built reputation. So all of those things, that work that Matt has already put into all of this is part of what allowed him to sell these things for money over time. So yeah, so now is a decent time for buying because people are going to be offloading stuff at really good prices.
And some of the stuff he sold is cool. Like here, there's a Legend of Zelda brand new unboxed limited edition for the Nintendo Switch with the Master Sword. There's Bandai Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi Revenge of the Sith figure for $200. The Zelda one was another $200. There's a Zelda Link on, he's like on some kind of ship. This is Link from Legend of Zelda, and it's worth like $2,000. Like, this is crazy stuff. And Mike and I were talking about this before the podcast because I was, sharing my woes of how things have been lately. But that's reselling. Like, you can have like this mountaintop experience and get this major score, and it's going to pull you through the month, or you could have a bad 2 weeks, right? That's the reality of reselling. And so thank you for sharing that, Matt, because you never know. You're one opportunity away from making your month, even making your year, for some people making their lifetime, right? So it's kind of crazy. So, all right, this is a cool one. So this is from Alex, IG handle Flip for More. Remember Flip for More? He's been listening to the podcast since the beginning. Yeah. Since the beginning. He was like, I think, one of the first hustles of the week. He's had a few. So he went to an estate sale the last day. So there was 4 days of an estate sale, over 2 weekends in a row. Saw a bunch of vintage Swatch watches, 42 in total, and picked them all up for $20. That's a score. 42 Swatch watches vintage for $20. Put on auction on eBay, non-tested, no batteries, and it's sold for $610 plus ship. That is crazy. And congrats to him. He had him and his wife had twins at the same time that this sold, so it helped him out. But here's the catch to it all. You want to know the catch?
What's the catch?
Guess who bought them?
Who bought them?
I bought them.
Nice.
So here's the Swatch watches. Let me just show you. I'm just sharing like 3 or 4 of them because it's a hustle of the week for me too. So these are pretty cool from the 80s. I don't want to. He packed these up really nice. Now I hope he does this for everybody and not just me because he did a fantastic job. Everything's in beautiful bubble wrap. But look at these. Those of you, if you're listening on podcasts, so this is a Pops watch. Okay, so this one right here, I think, I don't know if he wants to hear this, but he was okay with it. He knew. I think I can get like over $200 just for this one watch, and I bought 42 of them. Look at this other cool one with the clear right there. Look at that band on there with the guy surfing. And these are all like I didn't Flip for More. I did not know how clean these are. These are all clean. And then this one says sheep hears or something. I think this is like $100-something for this one right here. So I got 42 of these for $610. So I'm thinking I could at least 3x my money on these. And here's the beauty of it. Swatch, and we've mentioned this, and I feel bad because I messaged them once it was already on auction, and I'm like, hey man, you can pull the auction if you want. Swatch will replace all the batteries on any Swatch watch. And so my goal is when I go visit my family up in San Francisco, there's a Swatch store there. There used to be one in LA and it shut down during, that era of lockdowns. And so when I visit my family, I'm going to go to Swatch and I'm going to get 42 new batteries installed. And then I'm going to list them all. So stay tuned for Hustle of the Week Part 2. But yeah, thanks Flip for More for here's the thing. I messaged him. I'm like, I shouldn't say what I said, but he had the ability to even, keep and relist if he wanted after I bought them, right? Because I bought them and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna, I could have done a return, whatever, you know what I mean? But yeah, he was that's the thing about reselling, right? He knew that these were valuable and $20 to 600.
Yeah, I mean, you might 3x your money. He did a lot more than 3x his money. So
100%. Now I'll make more profit, right, in the long run. But he made it faster too, right? It's going to take me, I would say it's going to take me about 3 months to 3x the money on these. So anyways, all right. That's Alex Flip for More Hustle of the Week.
All right. So our next one comes from Levi, who is on Twitter at LeviLock34. So we got a Game Boy camera in a big lot of other stuff that he thought was better. So factored in paying about $15 for it. Turns out it was a rare variant. So he sold a Legend of Zelda gold Nintendo Game Boy camera, special edition for $750. The shipping was free on that, but $750 same day. So picked it up, paid about $15 to $750. Holy smokes. That's no joke. And Game Boy cameras, like I get that's a collectible because it's Zelda, but have you seen like the pictures from Game Boys?
Yes.
Oh my!
I owned a few growing up. I bought them when they first were released. I wish I kept mine with the box. I remember playing Mario Brothers, Link to the Past, Tetris. Obviously, was a big game when it first came out. Yeah, I loved it. There also used to be this thing where there was a magnifying glass that you could put over it and a backlight, so you could play with it at night because the back screen didn't light up, so you couldn't play it in the dark.
Yep. You almost needed like a book light that you would go over the
that's
top.
what it was.
Yep. Right.
Nintendo got away with selling a book light for more money because it said Nintendo on it.
Yeah. And it plugged in though, right? Didn't it plug into or was it battery operated?
It was battery operated, but it was like this big clunky like device that you're playing.
That's crazy.
There's so many add-ons to the Game Boy. It's just pretty wild. That's why Nintendo is so popular because there's do you remember the Power Glove?
Yep. Nintendo sells an experience, right? It's not even the games they sell as much as it is the experience. So yeah, no, that's cool. All right. Orlando, what's your hustle of the week?
So this was an interesting one. So I always like to buy randomness and just see if I can sell it for good money on local marketplaces. So someone had a Jeff Dunham ventriloquist dummy and he had it for $50. And I looked up comps and they sell for like $200 to $300 on eBay. And I was like, no way. Like, why does somebody have this here? So I messaged him. I'm like, hey, would you do 35? He's like, nope. I'm like, would you do 45? He's like, nope, $50 firm. I was like, all right, whatever. I show up, I pick it up. It was basically brand new. Listed it on eBay for $300 and took an offer of $200. So, turned that 50 into over $100 profit. It wasn't very tough. It was, listing took me probably 5 minutes. Packing it took me another 5. Driving was the only thing. It took me 20 minutes. So I spent a total of 30 minutes to make $100. You can't beat that. So I know we always have these massive hustle of the week, but I wanted to share that, knowledge again, right? I knew that these ventriloquist dummies are money. Like right now, Goosebumps is coming out again on Disney. And if Disney, I wonder, are there any? Do you remember Slappy from Goosebumps?
Yeah,
the dummy. Did they sell that toy? I wonder if they sold that toy.
I'm sure.
And if they did, sure. I'm pretty sure that's gonna go up in value. And recently, somebody did good old eBay. Remember that Goosebumps collection I paid $20 for? Somebody offered me $300 and I took it. And guess what happened? They didn't pay. Which I'm fine with.
Now you'll probably make more, yeah.
I know. I'm just going to up it now that I realize it's coming out. So, yeah. So that's my hustle of the week. Local deals you can always make money on. How about you?
I'll be honest, I don't have anything that's significant enough to talk about this week. Just kind of handful of bread and butter sales. I've actually kind of slowed down on the local stuff, just being so busy.
Okay.
But since we're moving into garage sale season here pretty soon, I'm hoping I'll be getting some of the pickups that are more noteworthy for sure. So, but I do want to mention before we move on, just to kind of get your thoughts on this. So we're already at almost an hour. Do we want to break this up into a two-part episode?
Let me see. Can we fly through the rest of these? Because are you saying we've been keeping it too real on this episode?
No, I mean we've gone into depth on everything. I mean we could go longer on this one, or we could save this for a part two, the next things, the real facts about reselling,
Well, let's do one more. Let's do one more.
and then we'll break up.
Yeah,
and
because
do
I
a
had
part two.
if we do, because we've already talked about a lot of this, like adapting. We talked about adapting, like you have to adapt, right? That's the reality of reselling. We talked about reselling, right? Is simple. I had something about reselling can be done by anyone, but is not for everyone. We kind of talked about that,
Yeah,
right?
it's a little redundant. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how
All
about
right, what's the one that you feel like we haven't touched on enough? Where's the gold at?
Platforms don't care about your feelings? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, explain what you mean.
Well, okay, so right now, I this is just, and we've had a lot. I would say, I don't know if hard hitting episodes, but we've had a lot of episodes about, like what was one titled "You're Wrong About eBay," or one was like "You Must Have eBay Ads," or we've had all these, right? Like I feel like we've been very like you must hustle, you must work hard, right? Right? We've even been accused of being toxic, right? That we're part of the hustle toxic culture on social media lately. And the reason, and Mike hasn't been as tough about this as I haven't, and not that he doesn't agree with me, but or maybe he doesn't. But the reality is right now things are kind of brutal. Right? Even today I've made on eBay, I've made $110 gross profit. Okay. That's what, $70 by the time I'm done. I would have been better off working for minimum wage in the state of California in the last few hours than reselling right now. That is brutal. Right. And so, some people would go like, "Oh, you should contact eBay," or we should make a whole video about how we're all doomed because eBay's doing something with the algorithm, or eBay CEOs don't care, and we just did a reason why you shouldn't leave eBay. So if you haven't checked that one out, check out that episode. We did a part two recently. One of them was about CEO, and I think there's this false sense in the reselling community that if we say things loud enough, like eBay is actually going to change things. Now, they might, but I'll give you an example of why I don't think platforms ultimately aren't seeking the best interest of all the resellers, or seeking the best interest of their shareholders, and what allows them to stay profitable. And I know you probably disagree with him, Mike, but
No, I don't disagree with you. I mean, they're looking out for their most important customers, their biggest resellers, or their biggest customers.
Correct. And do you remember when we went to eBay Open 2019, right? We talked to a couple of execs, right? We mentioned about unpaid items, and we talked to them about this, and how did we feel after we met with those guys?
About the unpaid stuff?
Oh, or about just having a conversation with them.
I mean, there was mixed feelings. I mean, I feel like we got some good answers as far as like, here's why we haven't done immediate payment. And it was like, okay, that makes sense. And there were some promises of some change. So I feel like that in general, we felt like, okay, we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, you felt good, right? You felt empowered, right? I remember years ago when I was in education, there was a superintendent that people would go in and they would voice their opinions and they'd voice their feelings. And he was really good at empathizing and just relating with people. And people would walk out and they go like, "Oh, there's going to be some big changes." he heard me out. Things are going to be better. Things are going to improve. And nothing changed. Like nothing changed. And then a month or two later, people would become really upset. They get angry. Hey, I met with them. I talked with them. They listened to me and nothing's changed. And so this got me thinking about eBay. Like when we were at eBay 2019, I felt really empowered walking out. I was like, hey, they finally heard us out. Cause we were like in these closed door meetings, right? With like, at that time we were really like, we're still small creators, but we were like, I don't know, what do we have? Like 2,000 on YouTube? Not even I don't know what it was. Like a couple thousand on Instagram. Like we got invited to, I would say, the big boys table without, being like, there's, you had like eBay Princess. I forget who else was there, but there's a lot of people that had a huge following that was there. And I remember walking away going, wow, like things are going to change. They're going to make the seller experience better. And I felt really, I was like, oh, okay, good. eBay hears us out. And then over time, right, we're now in 2023 and still unpaid items hasn't been fixed. Right now we're doing promoted listings. Now there's other things that some people would say are working against eBay sellers. And so I want people to understand, and you can disagree with me, Mike, or maybe you agree with me. I want people to know that in the end, spending the time hoping that eBay or Amazon or Mercari or Poshmark is going to listen to you, or just mulling over it, going to the comments, going on YouTube comments, listening to only YouTubers that just all they do is rant and complain and say something's wrong all the time. Like in the end, you may feel that eBay or Amazon, all that are going to make major changes, but the reality is you're better off expending that energy focusing on your business, trying to figure out what to do, sourcing better, listing better, providing better customer service, finding ways to make it happen. Because in the end, these platforms are about staying profitable. And if that means that they don't change things for you, they're not going to change things for you.
Yeah. I mean, to go almost make us sound like those toxic hustle people. The reality is, and I think there's some truth when you hear things where it's like, no one's coming to save you, right? You have to take care of yourself. You got to recognize this is your business. This is your life. Nobody cares about your life the way you care about your life. And nor should they, right? Like this is your life you're living. You only get one of them. And, I think there is value. I wouldn't say you should never complain. I think there's value. There's times where like me and you, or like you're at work, water cooler talk. Sometimes it's helpful to know, like, am I seeing things right? This is my experience. Are you experiencing this too? Okay, I'm not crazy. This is like a bad situation, whatever. But you can only control the things you can control. If there's steps you can take to fix a problem, great, fantastic. But when it's something big outside of your control and you're not going to be able to change things, you can hope that, well, maybe if eBay, makes things way easier for me, like that when eBay did the thing where they increased the number of listings you could have for the stores, right? Like they changed their store format.
Mm-hmm.
It was really helpful. It was like, wow, like I actually can, like, for a while there, I was actually able to downgrade my store to a lower level and get the same amount of listings. So it was like, oh, that's a sweet little bonus. But I wasn't relying on that. I'm not sitting around hopefully eBay does a structural change of some kind that's going to make me more profitable. My profit is in my hands, and I'm the only one that can make. There are outside forces that can cut into my profits for sure, but I'm the only one that's got control over what I'm going to do about that. And so, yeah, I agree in the sense of, look, you can complain about eBay all you want. Sometimes it's helpful to say, like, see that you're not crazy in a situation. Maybe other people are in the same experience. They have the same experiences as you do with certain things, but then move on. Like, go with the almost stoic mindset of, you can't control what's happening around you. All you can control is yourself. And I think we're all a little happier when we do that, because to me, there's nothing worse than just the complainer that just complains. I feel like at first it's fine. It's like, yeah, I agree with you. But then it keeps going and going and going. Eventually you almost feel sorry for them. You're like, why? Look, no, I can't fix this problem for you. You got to fix it yourself. So I agree. I think eBay, Amazon, none of these platforms, they're tools for us to use. And maybe the tool isn't as sharp or as useful as it used to be, but it's still a tool. Figure out how to use it.
Yeah, agreed. And again, I'm not here saying things aren't tough. They are brutal. I will relate. I relate with many of you. I just choose not to focus on that because I don't. I did that for a little while, and the podcast I was doing that for a little bit, and I came to a realization that I'm not helping anybody. I'm not helping myself. And so the reality of reselling is, like you said, is in the end, you got to do what works for you. You got to stay in your lane, and you got to work on what is, the one thing you can control. I know I'm getting redundant, but there's no guarantees in reselling. I think there's an expectation right now that eBay, I've said this before, eBay owes people a salary. Amazon owes people a salary. They do not owe us anything, right? What they owe us is whatever we agree to on the terms of service. And what they agreed to on the terms of service, and I'm just being generic, is that we would put an item on their platform and that they would promote it to a certain extent. And when it sells, they would take fees and they would give us the remainder as profit. That's ultimately what we agreed to, right? Everything else is nice to have, but there's no guarantees. And when the situation is something where they can't guarantee a salary, and it's kind of ludicrous to expect a guaranteed salary, it's time to realize, like you said, there's no one out to save you. You got to make it happen. You got to work hard. You got to hustle. With that being said, make sure to be real.
Be relevant.
And be reselling. Lates.
Peace.